There's a windowless building near you with no sign on the door that just became some of the most valuable real estate on Earth, and almost nobody noticed it happen. From the road, it looks like a giant gray warehouse. No logo, no windows, maybe a fence and a bored security guard. You drive past it 100 times and never think about it. But inside that boring box sits something that companies are now fighting over like it's beachfront property in Monaco. Here's the wild part. For most of history, the most valuable land was where people gathered. Downtown corners, ports, the spot where a railroad crossed a river. Location was everything. But these new buildings break that rule. They're often planted in the middle of nowhere, in the desert, next to a power station, far from any city. And yet developers are paying a premium to build them. So the first question of this whole video is simple. Why would the most valuable real estate on the planet suddenly be a nameless shed in a field where almost no human ever sets foot? Stick with me, because the answer follows the money in a way you won't expect. Now here's where most people get it wrong, and I did too. When you hear data center, you picture rows of expensive computers, and you assume the value is the machines. Makes sense, right? The servers cost a fortune. But that's the misconception. The chips inside actually go obsolete fast. A top AI chip today might be old news before long, and companies swap them out constantly. If the value were just the machines, the building itself would be worthless the moment the hardware aged. So that can't be it. The real treasure isn't the computers. It's two things the building can deliver that you can't just buy off a shelf: electricity and the ability to get rid of heat. Imagine you own the only gas station for hundreds of miles, right next to a highway full of cars that will die without fuel. You don't own anything fancy. You own the choke point. That's what these buildings really are. They're not valued for what's inside them today. They're valued for what they can plug into and how much power they're allowed to pull. And that quietly changes everything about who gets rich here. So let's follow that thread, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. The thing these buildings actually sell is access to power. A chunk of electricity can run a sizable cluster of homes. A big AI data center campus can want an enormous amount of power. Read that again. A single large campus can want roughly the kind of electricity demand you'd associate with a populated area. And here's the surprising detail that makes this real estate, not just tech. You can build the building fairly quickly, but getting permission to pull that much power from the grid and the wires and transformers to carry it can take many years. So if you own a site that already has a signed deal to receive a huge slice of grid power, you're not selling a warehouse. You're selling a multi-year head start that nobody else can copy quickly. That signed power connection is the deed. That's why a plot of land with a grid hookup can be worth more than the fanciest tower downtown. The plug is the product. Real quick, if you've made it this far, I'm guessing you're finding this as fascinating as I do. This channel follows the money behind AI and big business, who really pays and who quietly profits. If that's useful to you, hit like, subscribe, and tap the bell so you never miss one. It genuinely helps us make more. Okay, back to it. Once a few big players figured this out, a quiet land rush began, and it looks nothing like the gold rushes you've seen in movies. There are no crowds, just developers, utilities, and a handful of tech giants buying up the rarest thing of all, sites that can actually get power. Picture a small rural town that happens to sit next to a big power line and has plenty of cheap land. A few years ago, nobody wanted it. Now developers are knocking on the county's door, offering to spend big. They want land near nuclear plants, near hydro dams, near anywhere with spare electricity. Some companies have even started talking about building their own power plants right next to the data center just to skip the wait. Think about how strange that is. A software company, the kind that makes apps, is suddenly in the business of generating electricity. That's not a tech move. That's a real estate and energy move. And the reason is brutally simple. Whoever locks up the power-ready land first gets to build first, gets customers first, and leaves everyone else waiting in line behind them. First to the plug wins. Okay, here's the part I really want you to sit with, because this is where it stops being a fun tech story and starts touching your life directly. Follow the incentives. When a data center wants a massive amount of power, the local grid often isn't ready for it. It needs new wires, bigger transformers, sometimes whole new power lines. Those upgrades cost a lot. And here's the quiet trick built into how many electricity systems work. The cost of beefing up the grid usually gets spread across everyone who uses that grid. Which means the new substation built largely to feed a giant data center can show up in part on the power bills of ordinary families who will never use it. By our read, that's the real story here. Big new power demand can arrive with costs that get shared, and a slice of the bill can quietly land on people whose only connection is living nearby. In some places, observers and officials have raised concerns about whether heavy data center growth could affect what ordinary customers pay. So, the next time your power bill creeps up for no clear reason, remember the nameless building in the field. Some of that increase may be the rent on real estate you'll never enter. So if regular people might pay more, why on earth would a town fight to bring one of these in? This is where the incentives get really interesting, because both sides are being pulled by something they can see, while ignoring the thing they can't. For the town, a data center looks like a dream on paper. It pays large property taxes. It promises a giant investment. Local leaders get to stand in front of cameras and say they brought big tech to the community. But here's the catch most people miss. Unlike a factory, a data center barely employs anyone. Once it's built, even a very expensive facility might run with only a small permanent staff, security, technicians, a few engineers. So the town gets the tax money and the headline, but not the thousands of jobs it imagined. Meanwhile, the company gets the cheap land, the power deal, and often a tax break on top to sweeten the deal. When you line it all up, you see who's really capturing the value. The company captures a long-term strategic asset. The town captures a press release and a slightly bigger tax. Thanks so much for watching. If you got value from this, hit like, share it with someone who'd find it interesting, and subscribe for a new breakdown every week. And follow us on Instagram at zavrek.official for more. See you in the next one.